Well, hello there, and welcome to another episode of Merge Roundtable. I am joined today with Frank Kushner and Dean Abdul. We are back, and we're going to talk a little bit about business, tech, and finance as usual. We're going to talk about some new things that hackers are doing to steal your data. That's always comforting and fun to know about. Who a new top buyer of U.S. Treasury bills are, and we've launched a pretty interesting mini doc this week called talking about the ban on short-term rentals in Dallas. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And I had I was witness to an interesting conversation with Martin Shkreli talking about Sam Bankman-Fried, some new information there. So we're going to see if we want to dive deep on that or not, or just laugh at the misfortune of others. So anyway, stay tuned. We'll be right back.
What's happening?
So laughing at the misfortune of others. Speaking of that,
speaking of spilling your coffee all over the place.
Yeah, that is no greater tragedy than spilled coffee, in my opinion. So I guess we can kick it off with some light discussion about hackers. So there's this interesting new thing that they're doing this week, or not this week. It's a trend that's been documented this week, where and I think it speaks to the conversation we were having about social media and all this, the ongoing conversation we have about security, where hackers are selling hacked police emails to those that are looking to exploit personal and delve into personal data, because the police emails can send fake search warrants asking for access to people's social media accounts, and the social media companies will just grant them free, unfettered access to their histories. Wow. How about that?
So what's very difficult in my field is trying to safeguard your clients against people taking their money, right? And there's a lot of people that are not tech savvy, and so many times we have things that happen. Like last week, I have a client who got a letter from the IRS telling her that she owes money and it's going to be sent over to this collection agency. The IRS is a collection agency. Like, who would they offload it to? So it's fake, right? So, but they look so efficient. And that's problematic because there's always someone trying to separate you from your hard-earned money.
Right.
And why would they work for it if they can steal it from you?
Right. Yeah. I mean, this is probably even more insidious, though, because what they're doing is so it's just a little excerpt from the article where they're describing a hacker had gained access to what seemed to be this law enforcement official's personal Gmail account, and hackers had proceeded to send masses of alleged documents from the government of Montenegro, including pictures of cash, flashy watches, weapons, and what appeared to be the collection of from the hacker's own collection and not the former prime minister's. So basically, it was a lot of they were impersonating government and then using that to get the personal access to the Facebook accounts, and then using that to access banking and financial, and then just using that to transfer stuff around. So being able to, know your last four of your social, being able to know the your dog's and your child's birthday, that gives you the ability to construct password hacking files so that you can basically gain access to anything, either through brute force or through I forgot my password.
Have you ever, either of you ever used one of those like identity services where they're like, give us your pay our membership fee and you can give out your social security number and you're safe forever? Like,
I do the Experian one where
experience like that, but that's usually just like tracking your credit report. So that tells you if somebody's opened a new account. I was talking about like, I guess there's an actor that was on like Modern Family. I think I can't remember his name, but he's like repping one now where it's like, oh, here's my social security number, and they can't hack me, like Identity Guard or something like that. One of those things.
I remember
I'm curious if anyone has any experience in whether that really ever worked, if that ever helped them or not.
I mean, I think at one point that would have been I think at this point, like everybody's data is out there. Like I don't know if you've ever logged onto the dark web, but you can get someone's full identity and all their bank account information and the logins and the backup logins for about like $3 a pop.
Oh wow!
The trick there. I would say the trick. The difficulty for hackers is not in stealing your personal data. It's how do you launder the money effectively without getting caught?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because I can show you, I can log you into whatever the current version of Silk Road is. I haven't been on it long enough to even know the names of what the current ones are. But like you go into the site and they have this deal where, I mean, the identities and the bank information is so cheap that they have it automated. Like you put money in the account and it's going to say, oh, well, we're going to send you 5 a day or 3 a day. And it's just like, and then it enables this pipeline of almost automated
process of fraud,
enterprise grade fraud. Yeah.
Did they give any sort of resolution or anything to look for in regards to like any red flags to look for, or they just came out and said
this is a security publication, so this is like a new and innovative way of stealing people's data. So there's really nothing you can do. It's more on the large scale social networks to prevent this level of fraud, which, boy, that makes me feel good because I know Zuck's got my best interest at heart.
He's thinking about me right now.
Yeah, I know.
Well, that goes to X's or Elon Musk's vision of that, is it WeChat or like the operations? So, keep it all in one place so they can hack it all at one time.
So, Hill, what were you saying? You were looking at a WeChat statistic about, like, was it you that were looking at, like, it was the second or third most popular form of payments worldwide because of the adoption in China or something?
That was not me.
That was not you?
I'll look it up.
It was a conversation we had in this room, so I thought that it might have been you, but maybe it was Mark and I.
That wouldn't surprise me. I know that even a year ago when I was at the All In Summit down in Florida, they were talking about, like, that was a big part of the platform. They were talking about how much Elon, who's on the video, had said, we're building something like this. There's no reason we couldn't have it. It does all these different things. You can do a conference room, book a massage, do this, do that, all the payment platforms. And I'm like, that does sound nice.
Mm-hmm.
If I trusted anybody, but I don't trust anybody with all of that data. That's just a lot of data.
In China, you just don't, you have no choice, but and it's not even about trust. It's just a thing that is, right? Like it's a different cultural value, where we still have this fallacious belief that we have some privacy because we think it's enshrined in our constitution. So we definitely got to have some privacy, right? But
it's okay as long as you give it out free, right? That's why the social media is.
I mean, and here I am thinking my amount of research we're doing for this show was just evasive. Like I felt like I was, because I'm reaching out like to personal emails, and they'd be like, "How'd you get my personal email?" I'd be like, "It's our research team."
Yeah.
But I thought I was doing something wrong. But honestly, I mean, I had to also get my children's stuff off. It was hard enough for me to allow them to have social media. But now that I open them, their personal stuff and they don't know how to use it and all that. It's scary. Or they're putting in my credit card without me knowing. Right. Which they should really get in trouble for that, right?
So yeah, you mentioned this. You're casting. Yeah, they should, right? You're casting this show, and like you're trying to get some high profile people on it. Like, how much difficulty do you have finding the personal information of anybody you've gone after? Like, has there been like somebody you said, okay, I can't get a hold of this person. I can't figure out how to get. I can't
find Damon Dash.
Damon Dash.
He does not want to be found. He's honestly, I think he's the only one on my list out of the 430 people. I can't find him.
But who is someone that you thought was going to be impossible, but you were like, wow, I got their personal email and they responded?
Snoop.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Not there. I mean, it was a whole bunch of emails that were online.
Right.
One of them was their personal, and they have phone numbers up.
Right.
Of course, I'm not going to be ignorant and call the phone.
You want them to answer.
I wouldn't do that.
But you could.
You can, but it is, I mean, they understand the business because they're in media. But just imagine someone finding all your personal information online. That's really creepy. Lucky for me, I don't have anything
So you know
important to come after. So-
you know how you're on those like messaging services sometimes, and it says like so and so in your contact database has joined Signal or
Yeah.
Telegram, whatever. So Seth Rogen, I guess, leaked his phone number on a interview one time, and it was like all over Reddit for like a day or two. And so I saved it in my contact database, and because he says, well, I'm not going to change it, even though like it's out there, I'm just going to keep it. And like, he's kept the same number. So every
Really?
time he joins Signal or Telegram or WhatsApp,
It's on there.
it's on there. And I get a
Wow.
notification. I'm like, hey man, how's it going?
Good to see you.
Welcome to Telegram. Never responds, but you know.
Yeah, there was years and years ago, there was a company called Capital IQ. I think they got bought out by S&P at one point, but it had all the information about these different people that were in the investment banking world. And it was like last deal, boards they sit on, all this information that even Bloomberg didn't have at the time. And so I called up this guy that I'd met on a plane. We were chatting and I said, hey, I just wanted to give you a heads up, just talk to you and try to get some business from him. And so how'd you get my information? I told him all the stuff that was on there, and he was like kind of blown away.
yeah, it's scary.
And it's like that, at that point you realize it's like, yeah, people probably, even though they're published or they're doing, pretty big things, sometimes people just don't want to be seen.
I mean, I'm impressed with just our small team being able to leverage what we were able to leverage.
It's
I mean,
all out
we're
there,
talking,
right?
it's even like venture capitalists and like billionaires, people that own islands. And I'm like, okay, there's a lot of people that we could actually just reach out to. And it's almost like they're just at arm's reach.
Mm-hmm.
Now imagine having like a whole office set up where all they do is just
Right.
of like 30, 40, 50 people.
There's a reason that I
In
still have
India
a
or
storage unit with
something,
18
right?
different old computers.
Right.
I mean, it just occurred to me to ask this, but like at what point do we say we don't need the FBI anymore? That used to be like their whole job.
Actually, I thought about that the other day. Like,
Well, as long as they're baby kidnappers, there's
Sure, but like you could run on a skeleton crew or something, right? You don't need like
right.
the whole like every FBI, like Herbert Hoover. I mean, no, J. Edgar Hoover, not the president, the guy that was the director. There was like their notorious thing is they had a file on everybody, right? But the file is the internet now. So
God.
what are you doing,
Every
guys?
time we have this podcast, I go home disturbed. I'm like, I'm shutting my phone off for 2 days.
Right.
I don't want to know.
Yeah.
Let me just not know.
Mhm.
You just stay unimportant enough that people won't want to reach out to you.
Yeah, I
That's the
don't-
best way to go. Right?
They can't really steal anything on my bank account right now. They're good.
Yeah.
But speaking of identity theft, okay, we were actually victims of identity theft. With my husband playing in the NBA, a lot of his assets and his finances were pretty much stolen. His identity was stolen. He found out he had properties he didn't know about in his name in Chicago, and these properties were left to have gone bankrupt and all of that, and everything kind of just came up on him. And then his financial advisor disappeared from AIG. They still can't find him. It's been like 20 years. Either he left the country or he was caught or murdered. We don't know. but and it's sad because it happens to a lot of these athletes. It really, really does. And us still being victims of it after all these years, like we're still dealing with it. But what I was saying about Experian was I thought we had like an option on Experian where you can actually keep track of anyone trying to steal your identity. Or is it just trying to?
So you have to call all the credit reporting agencies ahead of time, and you can ask them to freeze your account and to not allow, like whenever anyone tries to pull a credit report,
Right.
it'll immediately say, frozen,
Okay.
do not do it. And you have to call those three majors. Once you do that, you could lock and unlock it using your phone.
Right.
Or if you're going to go buy a car, you call literally from the office or something. But yeah, that's a really good way to protect yourself from a lot of the online stuff and a lot of the, some of the mail stuff. But people are clever, that people want to do business with famous people. And so they just want to believe that they're doing business with Mark Cuban, right? So they're
Yeah.
like, it's such a small loan. Why wouldn't we do it?
Right.
Right. So it's tricky. Yeah. The first thing you should absolutely do, though, if you are in a highly litigious industry, if you're a surgeon, if you're somebody, it's not the people that you are doing professional business with you have to protect yourself from. It's everybody else. If you've got a trampoline in your backyard and you're a surgeon and kid gets hurt, they're coming after you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Better make sure you insure that risk. Get an umbrella policy, right? It's small additional cost. There's just, don't be, if you're in a litigious field or if you're wealthy, you should insure as much risk away as you possibly
and to be honest, it's with all of our experience, even my oldest brother, he's a surgeon. He, the closest people that knew all of his daily activities were the ones that were taking. Workers inside, it's most of the time an inside job where they know your situation at that time. But yeah, you need to teach us more about how we can protect ourselves, Mr. Frank.
Yeah, I mean,
I was going to say the thing that you mentioned, the Experian thing that triggered this part of the conversation. You know why they have that data breach tool you're talking about?
Yeah,
is because between 2013 and 2015, they don't know exactly when, there was a breach that allowed hackers access to sensitive data of the customers.
I remember that.
From the
I
credit
remember
reporting
that.
agencies. Yeah.
Between that and the T-Mobile breach, which occurred around the same time period, 3 out of 4 Americans had their identity stolen.
Yeah.
3 out of 4. The majority. So chances are, strong possibility is that your identity has been stolen multiple times. Yeah. And Experian, the guys that are trying to help
protect you.
Be a shame if something happened to your personal information. Why don't you push this button and absolve us of liability, but also will protect you in the future.
Yeah. And there's also, it's not just cyber hacking, right? There's also employee behavior.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So you can get a hold of that data. Walking through an office building, seeing a stack of papers with personal information on it.
Yeah.
So
it's sometimes an inside job.
Yeah. Is layers on the onion. It's always layers on the onion. The more complex or the more wealthy you have, the more layers. Now,
wait, can you say onion again?
Onion. Layers on the onion.
Onion. Wait, is he saying it different? Onion. Wait. Say it one more time.
Layers on the onion.
Okay, I'm hearing something else. I'm sorry.
So, it can make you a bigger target, but a bigger target for a lot of smaller things. So if you have several pieces of property, you don't have them all under your personal name. Each one of them would have depending on the state or the location of their territory, you'd have a different entity that would own that property. Right. If you take a look at most of the consulting firms, you see their limited partnerships, because if like one branch in California does something really, really shady and they end up closing down, you got all the rest of the nation branches that still survive unaffected. So there's a lot of different ways to structure your business to protect against parts of the body going bad, or to protect yourself, individually and separately, right? If you've got children from a previous marriage, you need to make sure you protect those kids, because that's your responsibility to take care of your kids first.
Right.
Don't leave that to your, surviving spouse, because what happens if they get married?
Right.
Right. So, yeah, it's all layers on the onion. It's really complicated. It's like, go figure that out on an app.
Can we have like a 1-hour session a week of a class with you?
It's called Money in the Bank with Frank.
It's called Money in the Bank
right
with
here
Frank.
on his network.
True.
10 o'clock.
So can we also get him on the podcast? We really need to get you on the podcast. Our other podcast, the third one.
Yeah. We've got some limited time. It was a good year of playing like I didn't have to pay attention to a lot of stuff. We made the portfolio pretty ironclad and somewhat, stable for the markets. And I gave myself that because we wanted to find out where interest rates were going, what the market was going. And that year's almost over, so I'll have to actually be a real human again and do real work.
Oh no!
I'm sorry. Welcome back.
But yeah, well, I'd love to be on it. It'd be fun to come on and help out.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing, and not to be a broken record and always bring it back to how blockchain is the solution, but really what we're describing with stolen identities and impersonation and this, like, how do you mitigate liability question, is it's a broken paradigm. Like, it's a system that makes sense for the era in which it was created, right? Which was like the 1940s and 50s, where it's a social security based number identification system. But like, we've got better technology now, and someone should have to ask my permission before accessing my personal data. And with cryptography, you can control that. Like, you can control who has access to your data, and you can charge them for access. And you can say, okay, if you want to, you can have it can be an automated thing where, like, you wake up in the morning, you got a list of notifications, and I don't recognize how 17 out of the 20 people that want access to my data, you get denied.
You have to take into consideration human nature and behavior, right? I mean, if you look at the 80-20 rule, or if you look at any Fibonacci sequences, you got a certain percentage of the population is going to do whatever they want. The rest of them just want to work on the same rails. So there's no reason that people that are in the know wouldn't do that, right?
Sure. No, I'm just saying
not everybody that has a small business incorporates it either, right?
We need to evolve our system, is all I'm saying. Like, it makes sense. Like, we've had this technology for 30-40 years now. We need to move into the 20th century,
right? I think what you're also saying in a different way is, like, because it's here, right? You can't do it right now. The thing is, it's like the regulators and all the governmental entities and everybody that's attacking it, need to loosen up, or at least come up with a common ground, right? And that's what really we're looking at, because people are doing it anyway. Yeah, right. They're the Silk Road still exists, right? Sure. So you make it easier, you make it more efficient. Don't make it so burdensome, and make money on it. Like, there you go. What's so hard about that, government? What haven't you figured out, right?
Right.
Yeah. Can't put aspirin back in the bottle, and can't take it back away.
We're asking for too much. We're asking for too much.
So before we get too far down the road on this topic and use the whole hour, I wanted to make mention of the fact that we released our mini doc on short-term rentals. Our switcher today is Jen, who was the director on that piece. It was a great piece. The kind of the short version of what we discovered in our exploration of the topic is that there doesn't seem to be a big bad behind this Airbnb ban, but it does benefit a certain type of people. It feels a little bit like an updated form of redlining, because it will undoubtedly negatively affect those of a certain class, and it doesn't seem to really solve a problem that actually exists. But it certainly is addressing a problem that a lot of people think exists. So I don't know, Jen, if you wanted to, that felt like a good summary of what we talked about, or if you wanted to pitch in additional thoughts.
I think we're going to go ahead and show a nice little clip, and then I think we can dive into some explanation, if that's okay with you.
Do it. There we go. Is this the so these are the guys that are the leaders of the Dallas Neighborhood Association. I get that right?
Dallas Neighborhood Coalition.
Coalition.
Wow.
They are on a mission to eliminate transients, and what was the other term that they used?
Dangerous.
Dangerous people, dangerous transients from staying in a neighborhood for less than 30 days.
So someone, from what I just saw, I don't want to give too much, right?
No, you can talk.
But from what I saw, it looks like someone went into their property by accident and they felt endangered.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some people with suitcases came to their house by accident.
Did they by any chance describe the individuals on the documentary?
There was no, there were certain keywords. I think people in short skirts was it something about that? Is it people about?
Yeah. So that man specifically was talking about how at a later date there were two girls dressed in short skirts and small purses, and he said, "Wonder what they're getting up to."
Oh wow!
Yeah.
I wore a short skirt and a small purse yesterday.
Yeah, well, he's wondering what you got up to.
So
But with what's the bottom line here of the ban is that it's targeted towards single family residential neighborhoods.
Okay.
So if you are looking to Airbnb or Vrbo a house in Dallas, soon you will not be able to. But they did not ban Airbnbs or short-term rentals in essentially multifamily housing units, apartments.
Okay.
So, I mean, following the economics of this, essentially you're taking low-income housing and raising the price of low-income housing in Dallas while you're lowering the price, lowering competition for single-family units. So I don't know. It doesn't seem like it's going to have a good effect on the working poor in Dallas, because now up to 15% of every apartment complex to make up for the 5,000 houses that are no longer available for rent are going to be devoted to Airbnb rather than to actual tenants.
So did this group of individuals for the coalition, it just sounds creepy. Did they have like other additional testimonials, or it was like, how many stories did they provide you that they just felt like, okay, this is a serious situation?
So they and Jen, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but
there was a few
Yeah.
testimonials, but
Nonviolent cul-de-sac parties.
yeah, a lot of it was just like typical behavior of someone who's coming in town for a vacation. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary.
like
or-
anecdotal stuff,
Cars
like
on the driveway.
Yeah, cars on the street, where it was a huge deal. Apparently it's a big deal to people who own houses.
but it was all anecdotal. There was no documentation. There was no crime statistics cited. And Dallas has an open database, open API for crime statistics. You could literally correlate this stuff with hard data if it existed. They didn't do that.
sounds like it's people with a little too much time and
Which is always
just
the case
a little
in NIMBYism, right?
little angry.
It's the Karen coalition.
I tell you, I went on vacation with my wife to Cape Cod. Now, when I was single and I went there, I shrugged off a lot of the comments and the rudeness because I don't care. But when I was there recently, and I'd forgotten just how provincial the people there
Mhm.
were, that I realized that I did some research and I saw that the average age up there is in the mid 60s that for local residents. And I was
Mhm.
like, of course they're grouchy when people come into their neighborhood,
Mhm. Yeah.
you know, but
And-
these are the unintended consequences of somebody with, like, you know, the guy said, looks like he was a retired lawyer. He clearly knows how to navigate the system to make it worse for everybody because he's
Right.
grouchy.
Well, I mean,
Well, and it's
is
also
he married?
it's making it worse for people not just in Dallas. Here's the
Yeah.
thing, because New York this week announced that they are
Mhm.
enacting a ban that's almost identical to the one in Dallas.
Oh,
And
wow.
other cities and states across the country are using Dallas as the template.
Well, I will say that in New York, it's troublesome because there's already such a problem for these landlords and these owners of these buildings. You know, they're just trying to find any way to cover the refinancing that they're about to have to take. And you
Mm.
just take that out, you take even more away from them of being
Yeah.
able to shore up some finances.
Like, I get that there could be some sort of danger. I mean, think about it. Like, say anybody could get Airbnb, right? You could
Mhm.
be like a pedophile or a serial
They-
killer,
they
right?
do
and they come
background
into
checks, though.
town.
A lot of them have background checks
they?
now. Yeah.
Yeah, I know
Okay,
people that
is it efficient?
I can't get an Airbnb.
But look, we're going back to identity theft. You could
I mean, I could steal someone's identity and get an Airbnb.
get an Airbnb if you want to, but that's a lot of work. But what I'm saying is, I understand
$7 on the dark web.
Well, I'll say
That's
that
$7.
the difficulty that I had a timeshare in Colorado, and I had it for many years. And when COVID happened, Colorado put this thing on their books where you couldn't go and stay there unless you stayed there for at least 30 days. And our timeshare was like
Right.
2 weeks at a time.
Hmm.
So we couldn't even use it, but I still had to pay.
Right.
Now it is part of a, interval owners association, and that really costs those associations a lot of money for the people that just feed back their timeshare,
Mhm.
So, these unintended vectors, these unintended consequences are pretty enormous. Like, speaking of unintended consequences, don't you have something about the federal?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh Lord.
So this is interesting.
Once you go into the federal part of things.
So yeah, it's going to be a fun conversation with me around. So I thought it was a higher number than it was, but let's say I am an entity, an individual or an entity that is the 22nd largest holder of treasury bills.
Mhm.
What sort of influence do you think that would give me with the Federal Reserve, federal government?
Well, I mean, I will say, considering that China is effectively our banker and they haven't really gotten very far with this, I would still say that probably not much, but it's concerning, right? If it was a corporation and you were like 22nd.
Yeah, the one corporation with a very monolithic and opinionated framework on U.S. banking. So the organization in question is Tether, the stablecoin provider.
Tether, sure, yeah.
I mean, they have a very opinionated framework on like what banking should be, and it looks nothing like what we have. And they're the 22nd largest holder with $72.5 billion worth of U.S. Treasury bills.
Treasury bills. That's 1 year less, right?
Yeah. So that means, to me, like, they might. This is why I'm asking you. You know this world. Like, what level of influence could they have in that?
Not on policy, right? None on public policy anyway. I mean, what they could do, like, they can't, I mean, they literally are just borrowing. It's no different than going into JP Morgan Chase and being the 22nd holder of their CDs, proprietary CDs. You're still not getting a board seat. You may get access to the corporate lunchroom,
right?
Well, but you're not going to have any real,
because the Federal Reserve and the central banks are also engaged, as we've talked about many times, this choke point 2.0, where they really are trying to hurt and choke out entities like Tether.
Yeah.
Right. And so if the 22nd largest holder is, the leader in this industry, how does that affect their calculus?
Well, I think one of the good things that it does, if you think about it this way, is that, like, they were really concerned that no one was going to want the treasuries. They were worried that people,
right.
So they basically created a market for somebody that was going to have to buy it off balance sheet other than the Federal Reserve, right? So they, Tether had to buy it. And so the Federal Reserve could shrink their balance sheet.
I mean, it was a direct result of a legal action against Tether that caused this to happen. The New York AG, New York has very stringent banking laws in general, but they also have something called the BIT license, which established a specific type of process for crypto companies many years ago, and they came under scrutiny for being somewhat less than transparent with their public audits at Tether.
Right.
And so one of the things they did an audit, and then it was revealed that a lot of the assets backing the dollar coin were corporate entities and corporate bonds. And they're saying, no, you can't do that. Like, that's not going to fly in New York. So they said, okay, T-bills it is, I guess.
Yeah. And they're doing great at 5%.
So.
Wow. Every time I feel like I'm in class, I just want to listen.
There you go.
Like, what is going on in the world?
Okay, so ask some questions. Where do you find your hooks onto that discussion there? Like, what's interesting?
Literally, I'm just learning this one.
Okay,
I'm with you. I'm following.
You're following.
I need a textbook.
So what's interesting is, backed by the Texas Blockchain Council, there is actually a cryptocurrency blockchain course being offered at Dallas County Community College, or Dallas County College, or Dallas College.
Right.
And it's, I don't know who's teaching it yet, but it starts in October.
Oh,
so
wow.
It's like a 6-week course or something like that. So
I might sign up.
It's funny, not a paid sponsor, but if you want to be, feel free to reach out to us over here at the Merge. Coursera. I'm actually taking a course on Coursera for free by Vanderbilt University on AI, basic block, learning how to create prompts and figure out how for a an old school IT guy to learn the new thing is scary, but it's been fun.
You started it yet? Like,
I started it a couple weeks ago.
So what's the most unique key learning you've picked up from it so far? like something that you wouldn't have expected, but it's been interesting because
the workarounds, the interesting ways that you could pre-program the commands, like, okay, so I am a certified financial planner, you could address me as this, these are my credentials, don't come to me with answers that are generic. You can basically pre-program different things. I haven't created the one that's like the pre-program how I want it to actually answer me, but you can actually literally tell it exactly how you want it to search for things. It's just really fascinating because you don't think of your lexicon as being code, but it really is. So the more words that the more precise your answers are going to be, which is really neat.
I mean, that's so I was explaining because my kid's a little bit neurodivergent, and I was explaining because he's not a fan of small talk, but small talk, if you're a geek and you are old enough to remember what a modem sounds like, and my kid's geeky enough that he's
in my head right now.
We were talking about AOL this week in the studio on one of our projects, but yeah, so that noise that the modems make when they're connecting is called handshaking.
Okay.
And so what it's doing is it's basically whistling different tones at each other to figure out what compression protocols both sides know, so they can figure out what language to speak to each other.
Oh,
that is
wow.
so cool. That's TCP/IP. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and so the when you're making small talk, you're talking about the weather, and you're talking about sports, and you're talking about what you do for work, you're handshaking. You're trying to figure out what language what's the highest level, most compressed language that we can share together to talk about, because I'm not going to give you sports metaphors if you tell me you hate sports.
Right.
I'm not going to make
There's no bond.
like with my kid, I can talk about handshaking protocols and use it as a metaphor for learning sociology.
Right.
With most people, I cannot do that. That's part of the handshaking. If you're not a geek, I'm not going to give you this example I just gave.
Yeah.
So
It's like chemistry in a relationship.
Yeah.
You have to have that chemistry.
that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
It's great.
So
I didn't know that.
yeah, there you go. A little.
See what I learned again today.
Speaking of chemistry, in a sense, Farmer Bro, you know who that is?
Oh yeah,
Farmer Bro,
Shkreli, right?
Martin Shkreli.
Yeah.
So if you don't know, he's a shoot, I thought I had a one sentence description of him here, but basically he was a hedge fund guy.
Okay.
That was most well known for raising the price of, what was it? I've got it right here. Raising the price of Daraprim from $13 to $750 a pill.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Say that again. He raised the price for a pill.
A pill, yeah. So he basically bought the rights to a pill. It's an anti-parasite toxoplasmosis pill that's used to treat malaria and other types of infections.
Okay.
He raised the price from $13 to $750 a pill. It's this guy, yeah.
And he just has he has a punchable face, so
he looks like
it's sad because he not only did he do something really bad though, but he actually looks like someone you'd want to punch, and so he definitely got it on TV a lot. Like I think that was after they said that he was guilty, and he still has that smug smile on his face. And it was just it's just his personality. You're just
he looks like Pee-wee.
And he was convicted of securities fraud in 2018 and was sentenced to 7 years in prison and served.
So I shouldn't reach out to him as an icon.
No.
You know what?
I'm not.
I'm sure he probably have a really interesting conversation. Yeah.
I'm good. I
Actually-
can't. I don't think if I saw him in
actually-
person, I wouldn't be able to have a.
He would be.
We would not be able to handshake. It's just,
There you go.
I can't.
So, but anyway, the reason why I bring him up is he had a 3-hour Twitter Spaces last week where he was speaking with a Forbes reporter and his cellmate from prison about Sam Bankman-Fried's ongoing criminal proceedings, and it was just a unique conversation and a unique perspective, particularly for me because I've also been through some of the experiences that both Sam is facing and Shkreli just went through. In fact, I reached out to him and had a short conversation before I went in to, hey man, you got any advice as a white collar guy going in? What can I do to survive? And he gave me some good tips.
Yeah. Did he tell you to watch that movie with with Will Ferrell and Kevin Hart.
Don't mimic anything.
No.
Oh wait, when they were police officers?
No,
or-
when he was like trying to give them advice, is like I think it was called Get Hard or something.
Oh
like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I mean, that was actually a topic that he talked about at length. Because he was in a low security facility, I was in a minimum. Sam is most likely going to be in the toughest facility, the USPs, because of his age and the length of his sentence. You cannot be in a low if you've got more than 20 years on your
Oh
sentence.
wow!
I would just recommend like messing up his hair a little bit.
Well, I mean,
that
that luscious mane, yeah, it needs to look a little harder.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm making fun of people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's
Look,
one of the biggest fraudsters in human history. It's hard not to have a little bit of saying Freud here.
Yeah.
They have
He'll learn the hard
they
way.
have all of these people lined up, already pleading guilty, already giving back a bunch of money, which makes me wonder if they're giving back that much money, how much money do they have like
In the
hidden
beginning,
somewhere else? But
right.
They're pleading guilty and they're saying we're cooperating with the prosecution, which means that he is going away forever. But I mean, how many multiple
Dang.
life sentences can you have? Like, right?
Well,
You're kind of in trouble.
so
I don't think you're getting out of that one.
so
My
my
opinion.
my friend and neighbor from Beaumont was a dude named, I've mentioned on the show a couple times, named Trevor Cook. Went down for a fairly large $1 billion hedge fund disaster up in Minnesota, and the number of life sentences or 30-year stack sentences that you get actually does impact your quality of life inside. And so that's why you would continue to negotiate or play ball, because like Trevor, he had to make a decision whether he was going to accept the securities fraud or the IRS charges.
Mhm.
And I can't remember which one he went with, but the one that he chose basically allowed him to serve some stuff that was concurrent rather than stacked, and allowed him to go from a medium facility, which is pretty brutal, like you will see death in a medium, down to a minimum where I was.
Mhm.
So where you will probably, if you're lucky, see a fist fight a year.
Mhm.
I'm not saying they don't happen, I'm just saying you'll see it, right?
Mhm.
And the quality of life, obviously, of living in a jungle versus a camp is significant and can't be overstated. But it's also something that, and this is what was discussed in the conversation about SBF, is most people from the outside don't have any perspective on that and can't even imagine, oh, prison's prison, it's the end of my life. I know that's what I felt like before, when I was facing it. It's like I didn't have any sense of the scale of, like, there is bad, better, worse,
Wow.
and SBF is also so, and this is one of their, it's interesting to hear their Shkreli's opinion as a finance guy, as well as someone who's facing prison. They criticize him for his just lack of attachment to reality in a lot of ways, not only in how he's handling his legal case, but also how he handled his business suggests severe detachment from reality. And so even if he was made clear that level of bad, better, worse type spectrum, he would probably still act the same way. He feels like he's got to control the narrative and control. He's probably going to testify on his own behalf, which is
Oh wow.
very bad idea. He does things based on it. This was input that was based on both the reporter that had been with him and Shkreli. Like, it seems like his decision making is what's most interesting to the internet, not what's good for me.
Wow.
So
he's a narcissist.
he's gonna go away for a very, very long
It's in
time.
trouble.
He's, I
Yeah.
Yeah.
just want to know what gel he uses.
With gel?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know what gel he's gonna use.
Oh my god, no.
Yeah.
Mark.
That is.
I mean, I've used it. I know what it is. I'm just saying.
that's it's
Wait, what?
it's
The
so
gel, the
beyond-
hair gel.
Oh,
It comes in
okay.
it comes a little ketchup packet, It's not good stuff.
It's just fascinating to me that, like, he is so detached. It's like I stay away from it, but it's hard. The scale of money that was taken and gone, and how it really dislocated an industry that I know was just taking off, for the right reasons.
Wow.
The amount of money that he caused and the dislocation and just all the things that happened in the crypto market because of what he did, and also, there was their blame to go around to the institutional investors that didn't do any due diligence or didn't do the right due diligence, of course. But it really affected one of the ways that the small investor that was unsophisticated that really did make money. And thank God, so many of them that I've talked to at least walked away with something and bought a house or did something, right?
Yeah.
That were early adopters, but it could have run longer.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, like I said, this is why I think, if we could learn any lesson here from an investment perspective, as people that make decisions about where to put money, which many people in the audience, and I know you are.
This is not investment advice.
Well, it is investment advice in that it's a broad philosophical advice, and that is to say ethics matter.
Oh, sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Like who you're putting money into matters. Because so often it's like, okay, it's a binary, is this going to make money or not type decision, and like ethical investment and like social impact investment as a philosophy, I think, Matt, because it had to be clear from the tactics that he was using. They've been well documented at this point, like 15-minute term sheets and stuff like that. Like this is not somebody who has like a good heart. Right. He might be speaking the right terms in terms of being charismatic to the right types of people, but it's not, you don't give 15-minute term sheets if you've got a good heart. Right.
So we can safely compare him to a serial killer.
He
pretty much.
Yeah.
He's a con man.
Yeah, he's definitely a con man for
without
sure.
a doubt.
Yeah. Like even if,
and I would put your AIG broker in that.
Oh my God. I want to
seriously,
find him.
I would put, there are so many different things that happen. Thank the Lord that, there's been such a shakeout, and, for better or worse, the people that survived as financial advisors now, generally speaking, have shown good character and have, not gotten in trouble. Right. And so there are all these apps out there that do a lot of stuff for you, like the money management part you can do on your own, but you're not going to figure out how to structure your property, how to title things, how to do that.
And what to invest in.
And unfortunately, there are bad actors out there.
Yeah.
In any way, shape, or form, you need to date. You need to go and check out several different advisors and figure out which one you want. And it doesn't hurt. Yeah, you have to have a handshake. And it doesn't hurt, as one of my favorite clients told me when he finally made it, he was like, look, you know everything that I tell you, but you don't know everything.
Yeah.
Right. Because you need to make sure that you have some control over your own life.
Right.
So not putting all the eggs in one basket and not letting everyone know everything. Right. You've got your quarterback, you've got your attorney, you've got your accountant, you've got your financial advisor. Maybe you have more than one, but like,
do you work
you
with
need
any
to control your own, you need to control your group and your team and give them enough information to do their job and not enough to sink you.
Yeah.
I had a professional athlete years ago, and that was fascinating because what I didn't realize was that, because we did everything, we did tax returns, we did his money management. And with those tax returns, it was like, because he was a baseball player, they play in all 50 states plus Canada. So we actually had to do a tax return in every single state that he played.
Whoa. I didn't know that's how it works.
Yeah, because if you're a huge athlete making huge money, every state wants their cut.
Wow.
Yeah. So you're talking about a tax return like that.
For those that are behind on taxes, good luck. And I know one personally. I'm like, oh, good luck.
It was fascinating. Yeah, I was blown away by that. But yeah, it was fun. It was good having that athlete.
What is the biggest conflict you feel like? I think Dino is referring to who? Stop it. Stop. It doesn't matter what we were referring to.
No to that note. I caught the reference and I walked past.
And he walked right past, and I appreciate you for it. So we're gonna go back to the ketchup package.
Yes.
But really, you had to do that?
I think I clicked it by accident. That's my bad.
So we had that athlete, That was fun. Those big tax returns.
Mm.
It was interesting to see how that industry, like we were talking about the handshakes, each industry is different too, right? You have a
Right.
different language when you're in finance, and even subsets of finance, right? If I'm a personal financial planner, I'm going to have a different lexicon than an investment banker is going to have, right?
Right.
You know, we look at different things. We don't do the same stuff, right?
Mhm.
You also
Same
don't
thing.
agree
Same
on the
thing.
same things.
Yeah, and same thing with like, you know, professional athletes. You've got a subset that like does certain things. They've got managers and they've got agents, and then you've also got to know who's the guy to talk to, right? Which one is the person you're supposed to. So you have to understand that industry models. My model is more with medical professionals. I work with a lot of doctors.
Mhm.
They're very difficult.
They're very. Well,
they're
you know
very-
why? They think they know everything.
Yeah, but they do actually have a certain industry where they have a license to print money. And because of that, a lot of times they you know, the people are only going after the low hanging fruit. They don't go after the receivables. They just
Right.
ignore a lot of different things.
Yep.
And so, you know, if you have somebody that's able to help you with that thing and understands that industry, you know, so that's where I'm a little more well versed. Like
Right,
athletes,
right.
totally different sector. You do find surprisingly a good number of financial advisors that actually come from the sports industry.
Yeah.
And they do understand.
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I work with a lot of them,
Yeah.
and it's, you know, it's interesting to see the different difficulties they have with different athletes, or the educational aspect of it, the things that they have to teach certain aspects. And a lot of athletes don't come in understanding business, money, investments. So it's a process. And
Mhm.
honestly, it needs to be tackled at a very young age. If these children and athletes are training if their mindset is to train to go pro, well, then they need to focus on also understanding the business behind what they're doing and
Mhm.
investment opportunities. And I'm talking about young.
Mhm.
I talk to my son about it now.
I agree wholeheartedly, and I've been saying it for
Great.
30
You
years.
can
And
you
it's
can
not going to
teach our
happen.
class.
You know?
It's happening with me.
Children and money, like it literally, it's the thing. Like they teach you how to count, but they don't teach you how to balance a checkbook, right? They don't.
Yep.
They don't tell
Right,
you what a
right.
carrying cost is, and maybe if you understood why, you know, the difference between your formerly 12.99%
Yeah.
credit card to 21 or 24% credit card, and what the carrying costs are on that $3 cup of coffee you just put on your
Yeah.
XYZ bank
Absolutely.
credit card
I
at
think it's
24%,
doable.
you know, and people just don't care because it's been zero interest rate for years. And the numbers just came out this morning. I forgot. I can't even tell you exactly what it was, but the amount of money that is in debt, personal debt, is growing, and it's not good because people don't realize that 24% compounding annually is not a fun thing.
Yeah.
You know, like, good luck making 24% on the market every
Right.
year,
Right.
but you have that debt.
Jeez.
So what's your trade-off? Pay yourself first.
Yeah.
Don't get in debt and save your money. I went to
Save your money or invest your money.
first you save it and then you invest after you've got enough in your emergency savings. So I went to one of the discount brokerage firms yesterday to drop off some correspondence for them. And I walked in and people were really nice and they were waiting in line, and they, you know, different stuff on the wall. They had CNBC up and coffee over here. And I started thinking, I was like, what other industry is it that, you know, that you're dealing with people that actually have a surplus versus a deficit, right? When you're going into a law firm, you never know if it's a plaintiff or a defendant, if they have money, if they don't have money. But anytime you go into like a financial institution, people are making a deposit, they're generally working on a surplus if they're in a brokerage firm. I was like, it just seems like it makes people a little more genteel. Is that because you already feel comfortable?
You're not stressed out.
I don't know. Yeah. Pay
About
yourself
little
first.
stuff.
Tell you what, you walk in. Have you ever walked into the Federal Reserve in downtown?
Do they let you in?
I've spoken there a few times,
Okay.
and they hold conferences once in a while down there
Yeah.
too. Nothing says genteel landed gentry or whatever you want to call it when you see like $1 million pieces of artwork on the wall of a
Yeah.
bank.
Mhm.
Like, yeah,
Mhm.
these
Yeah,
guys
they made money.
these guys don't just have a little bit of money, and then they take you back to where they print it. So yeah, no.
Yeah.
I was going to actually go back to something you were talking about. Some industries have a license to print money, because there was an interesting article, and they did a podcast about it at the New York Times this week about the the Medicare price negotiation, and how like this industry might be seeing the end of its money printing license. And there was also another interesting story about the ability for pharmaceutical companies to enact long-term patents on that because of how they handled the HIV drug at Gilead. But it looks like politically the axe may be falling on certain segments of the medical industry,
Yeah,
at least on the pharmaceutical side.
The difficulty, and so it's going to happen. You're going to have a compression in margins. You're going to have more transparency in pharmacy benefit spend. It's just going to take longer, and it's going to be more complicated than it was when we did it with the retirement planning market, the 401k, and the 403b industry. What was happening back then is that you've got these big providers, you've got the different companies that are the backbones, like the Fidelities, the Schwabs, the T. Rowe Prices. Not that any of them were doing anything wrong, but there's old technology, and old technology has costs, and those costs get onerous over time. And so what do? You raise your fees to the people that you're helping. It got to the point where it was, well, what if we just raise the fees not to cover costs, but to make additional revenue? And so it got to a point where they made some changes, and they did retirement reform. And, we had FINRA and we had the SEC, which handles those types of things. And so state regulatory agencies were able to say, look, you guys need to cut it out. On the drug side, on the pharmaceutical side, you've got the FDA, and they just tell you that, yes, you can have a drug, or no, you can't have a drug, right? That it passes or it doesn't, but it doesn't have anything to do with pricing. That's why you're seeing Congress that's having to deal with it, and they're having to do the research. But like, what does Congress have to do with fining? You're going to have, once they actually do their research and pass their bills, then they're going to need to have an agency created or something that's going to be able to police that.
So it's
going to take a lot longer.
It's very nebulous. So what happened was, and I learned all this week, so I'm not an expert, just read it recently, is the Trump signed an executive order that said Medicare gets to negotiate. The history goes all the way back to like the Bush administration, which between Bush and Gore, when they were debating healthcare benefits for the nation's elderly. And we got that first reform where they were going to finally cover drugs with Medicare. But then it was basically a boondoggle because there was no price negotiation as part of that deal. So Trump signs the EO that says we can have price negotiation for Medicare, but like it's an executive order, so nobody really cares. And then the Dems, when they took over with Biden, they said, okay, we're going to pass it and make it a bill and sign it to law, make it happen. And then this week was when Biden announced a sweeping 10 drugs that he's going to negotiate,
which is what they were going to do anyway. It goes up over time.
Yeah, sure. But like the big criticism I kind of agreed with was like, really 10? And it was like 10 it was like 8 meaningless drugs and 2 that a lot of people use. So which I guess is still
and then if you go even deeper, it's like it's the shell game. It's that they're going to change it. And what you were talking about was where they're looking at these biologics, right? And so they're able to get past the generic stamp on it by calling it a biologic, and then at that point, then it gets exempted from certain of these negotiations.
So they called it patent thicketing. Like thicket, like a briar patch, where you make it so difficult to determine whether or not to make the generic you're going to violate a patent or not, like an add-on patent, that they just don't bother making the generics, and extends the life of the very expensive version of the drug, which came and bought it might be biting Gilead on the butt, because they were using that to extend the life of the first effective HIV treatment. Unfortunately for consumers of that drug, the first version of that HIV treatment they came out with had some like bone density side effects or whatever. They had a better drug, but because the patent wasn't up on the first one, they didn't release the second one that was better. And now all these people that were stuck taking this drug for 10, 12 years are suing. And it's all part of the system where they calculate how much a life is worth. And it's very inhumane for a humanity-focused industry.
I've said this over and over again. The healthcare industry is 17% of gross domestic product. We spend 4% on education. That just goes to show you how much waste and how much spending there is on things just because they say it's complicated. But if you're going to tell me that the pharmaceutical supply chain is more complicated than the NVIDIA supply chain,
Right.
You're lying to yourself, right? There's just waste. There's people taking money from your pocket, putting it in my pocket, so it's coming. I'm excited because I think that, if you focus on patient outcomes and you do your job and we lower the cost of healthcare, everyone wins, right?
All right.
Literally everyone. 100% of everybody has to have some healthcare.
Yeah. And by the way, we're going to have a booth over at the Dallas HR Southwest conference. On my show, I'm actually in a couple of weeks, I'm going to have the president of HR Dallas on the show. So
good.
Wow.
Glad you picked up what I was laying down there with the story.
Yeah. Love it.
Opportunity for the plug.
Love it. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I mean, what else we got? You got anything? We could get nearing the end of the hour here. You got anything you want to squeeze in at the end?
No, I'm just, I now feel like I have a lot to think about when I get home.
Yeah. Well, you got
My identity theft, my health, medication,
Yeah.
This show
prison,
is not
Airbnbs. I'm just like,
this show is
just
definitely
wanna
not.
quit.
It's not for the faint of heart. It's not for
It's
the people that are
not.
worried or nervous about anything, right? It's okay.
I
Everything's
gotta
gonna
go
be
work a
okay.
little
The
hard. I gotta
anxiety
go downstairs
round
and work.
table
The
once a
anxiety
week.
round, yeah, that's right.
So, all right then. Well, I mean, just as a quick note, we are filming your first episode hopefully next Thursday.
Next week, yeah.
Thursday,
I'm
right?
excited.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited. You have to get on my show.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
I gotta talk to you about
All right.
money and athletes
Okay.
and how we were a statistic.
Yeah.
Oh, that's live, isn't it? I'm sorry.
Yeah. The internet just heard that. Yeah. No. Yeah.
We have a lot of new content coming out. Look out for new Web3 ready content.
That's right.
Look out for, we may or may not be getting some content at permissionless for all you.
We'll be getting
crypto
some
heads.
content. It's a question of whether I'll be in any of it.
Yeah. And Dina's show, which
Absolutely.
is a nice, fresh
And
take.
we're 3-4 episodes into the new Dr. Bitcoin season. So that'll
that's
be releasing
gonna be
soon.
great.
So I need to name the show. Help me.
Dina's show.
Dina's show. Okay.
You have to do what I did.
What'd you do?
Money in the Bank with Frank came from a friend of mine. I went on social media. I said, I need to come up with this name of a segment.
Okay.
And I said, I will give the winner at the time was 1 million like Vietnamese bong or whatever it was. And literally it works out
You
to
know
$40
what?
American. And my friend who came up with the name of the show, he had his own
is
mechanic
mad.
shop. He was like, thank you. This is for my wife who believed in me. This is for my
I'm
parents.
done.
It was
You're-
1 million
hilarious.
Thai baht.
Yeah, time I was like
Yeah.
$40 American.
I'm gonna do
Best.
1 million. No, I can't even do
I'll do
Egyptian.
$1 trillion Zimbabwean dollars.
Yeah,
Oh, man.
The Egyptian
anymore.
pounds are actually
Or
what
maybe.
I'm gonna do. The Egyptian pounds.
There you go.
How about Anti-Social Anxiety Club? That's probably taken. But
That's a whole brand,
Yeah.
not the anxiety club part.
There you go.
I'm gonna ask
Anti-social anxiety
ET.
we can ask the audience, the one viewer.
club.
Well, that
Leave
That's
it in
great.
the
makes me
comments
feel
below.
better. Thank you.
All right. Well, I appreciate you guys hanging out. Of course, we'll be back next week. Hit like, subscribe, the bell, all the things that are around our video right now, and come back next week for another one. Hey, thanks for watching The Merge. We've got a ton more stuff for you to watch on YouTube, on Instagram, on TikTok, everywhere. Check us out.